All right. Hey, guys. Hope you all got a good coffee break. So basically, there's more security talk today. Now, going to address very interesting issue, which basically concerns most of the dApps today and related to the ERC20 token standard. So, yeah. So the topic today is to approve or not to approve, and kind of thinking about the balancing between the security and the user experience when you're building protocols or dApps. So couple of things about Aave. So we'll say that basically Aave is a project that is behind of kind of a bit, would say a bit older project named ETHLend. So basically we do crypto-backed loans on smart contracts and have been a couple of years now almost on mainnet. And basically we are a marketplace where we connect lenders and borrowers. Borrowers can basically pledge ERC20 collaterals and lenders can basically lend out Ether or, for example, DAI. Now, the interesting part in our application is that we deal extensive amount of issues or topics. We cover a lot about the ERC20 tokens. We currently use as a collateral over 100 tokens, and as we all know, for example, DAI and most of the stable coins are based on the ERC20 token standard. So kind of like the topic that we're discussing today is pretty much interesting. Last year we had a 20 million USD lending volume, which was pretty cool. Yeah. So basically users pledge different kinds of tokens, ERC20s, borrow funds, and to be able to borrow against your assets, you need to do certain transactions and approve your tokens. So that's the thing that we're discussing today. So how many of you guys know this very famous function of the ERC20 token standard, and what does it do? Cool. A few guys, nice. So pretty simple stuff. I mean, the idea of ERC20 is that, the approve function is basically that before you do a transaction, how it basically works is that you allow an address to spend certain amounts of funds. And basically, after you have done the approval, then you can basically, the smart contract that you have approved can initiate the transfer from and spend those particular funds, right? So there is certain issues for dApps. I think roughly a couple of years ago, mainly the case was usually that when you needed to transfer ERC20 tokens, you basically had a dApp design or user experience design where you actually approve tokens before you make the transaction, right? So every time you want to make a transaction, you go and approve, and you need to pay gas. So what happened is that, for example, in ETHLend, you need to transfer the collateral and approve the function. So you might have, when you want to withdraw the collateral, you have to approve. So it's kind of like a bottleneck in the user experience. And that has been kind of like an issue. And what the dApps then kind of solved or circumvented this issue is by actually pre-approving extensive amount of tokens. So you guys have seen maybe the upper picture there is basically from our application where user approves basically billions amount of tokens, whatever the ERC20 is. The below is from Compound, which is one of lending protocols as well on Ethereum. So as a user, when you start to interact with the dApp or the protocol, you're approving billions of tokens. And kind of first, when you see this thing you are a bit more scared. I mean, it's kind of like it. Also, it doesn't make sense much because you might have maybe 100 or 1,000 worth of DAI, and you're asking yourself, "Why the fuck I'm approving billions of tokens of DAI?" And I don't know what's the correct figure here, basically. But if someone is good in math, can actually calculate that. So kind of like this is the approach that where we are now, and basically approving and pre-approving. And this helps in the user experience because you do it once. So basically you don't need to do it over and over again. And you usually approve the proxy smart contract behind of the dApp to approve. So it's basically one-shot thing. Well, kind of the security issue here is that once we start to do these approvals and the allowances, you're approving a lot of tokens, and usually the user doesn't have the opportunity to get the approval back to 0, for example, or there might be an issue, for example, that the dApp operator changes the smart contract, so there's a new smart contract updated in the client side. You will see you interact only with the new smart contract, so kind of like you even don't have a possibility to set it to 0. And we're talking here about users who are not that technical, right? So definitely a technical person might find those smart contracts where you have approved billions of tokens and set it back to 0. But that's not the case for all, especially newcomers to the decentralized finance, for example. Yeah, so imagine a situation, basically you approve billions of tokens, let's say DAI and Ethereum, and basically you approve a proxy smart contract, and that proxy smart contract basically gets compromised, and that, for example, hacker can send those funds wherever and spend those funds in any way and send them around the protocol. So it's kind of like it's a small thing, but it's in a way that we're now building applications and protocols. Once we have more and more dApps doing this thing, and we have actually dApp users who are using or like consuming multiple dApps, for example, we might have in the future that one user might consume 10 different dApps or 20, and the problem becomes bigger and bigger, and that's where the risk comes. I haven't heard a case yet where this kind of issue has arisen, but I would say it's better to think about it now before it's too late. And now the question is like how we can improve the control of the allowances. And there is a couple of scenarios that we and our developers at Aave has thought about it. Especially one of our lead engineers, Ernesto, thought about that one of the ideas is to basically control the allowances. For example, we could have time locks. So for example, if you are approving billions of tokens, billions of DAI or 0x or basically any other ERC20, you approve to a certain amount of blocks. So let's say 100 blocks or 1,000 blocks. So the security risk is limited there. Another way, of course, will be if we designed wallets or add features. It's kind of like an off-chain solution. So basically, we could add features where we could take all the allowances and put them into the database and present to the user, and also monitor the events on the Ethereum blockchain. Basically, when these allowances happen, and basically show to the user and let the users the ability to actually control and set the approvals to 0. So it's kind of like more of an approach that is off-chain, but also requires kind of like more attention for the developers who are developing the user interfaces on dApps or wallets. So these are pretty interesting ways that how we can address the issue. But I think the main thing what we have to think about is what we're taking home today is to take the approve serious. Thanks, guys. Any questions? I think it was pretty clear, right? Thank you all.